He said I looked like the kind of guy who'd apologize if someone stepped on my foot. The entire circle roared with laughter. Even the bartender cracked a smile. I just stood there with that stupid, polite half-grin frozen on my face, like a raccoon caught in car headlights, holding a plate of goat cheese I didn't even want. And right next to him, standing way too close, was my wife, Rowena, laughing the hardest. She bent over like it physically hit her, clutching his arm, wiping her eyes. It was the kind of laugh you reserve for someone who makes your stomach flip, not your husband's humiliation. It wasn't the first joke Ezra had made at my expense that night. Oh no, it started 20 minutes earlier, when he introduced me to the group as Rowena's emotional support husband. That one got a chuckle. I shrugged it off, tried to act like I could hang. Then he called me Wall Eldon, a play on my name and the Pixar robot, because I apparently give off desperate and robotic vibes, whatever that means. And then came the real dagger. Dude, no offense, but you look like a tax audit became a person. That one hit hard, mostly because I knew Rowena had said it to him. That exact phrase. I'd seen it in her texts once, 2 months ago. She was mocking me. Said I was the human version of an awkward silence. I hadn't brought it up then. I buried it. Thought maybe I misunderstood. Gaslight myself. But here it was again. Word for word. Said out loud by the man she swore was just a friend. That's when the laughter stopped, for me. I looked around the group. All strangers. All on his side. I realized I was the only one in the room who wasn't in on the joke. I wasn't even at the party anymore. I was the entertainment. Until I did something that no one expected. Not Rowena. Not Ezra. Not even me. And no, it wasn't violent. It wasn't loud. It didn't break any laws. But I promise you, it shattered something deeper. Because what I said next ended the night. For all of them. And by the time I was done, no one was laughing. Especially not Rowena. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw a drink. I didn't storm out. All I did was take one slow breath, smile at Ezra, and ask, do they know? The group went quiet. That kind of stillness that makes you realize everyone was faking their laughter just a little. Ezra tilted his head, still grinning. Know what, Wally? I took a step closer. Not aggressive. Just enough. Do they know about last Tuesday? About your car parked 3 blocks from our house at 1:17 a.m. Ezra blinked. Rowena stiffened. That's when her wine glass trembled in her hand, just for a second. But it was enough. A woman across from me raised her eyebrows. A guy in a turtleneck stopped mid-sip. Or should I explain what you were doing with Rowena's sweater in the passenger seat? I added casually. The red one she told me she left at her sister's. Ezra's mouth opened, then shut. The air felt thick. Rowena finally spoke, her voice cutting through the silence like a plastic knife through a steak. Eldon, don't. But I didn't raise my voice. I wasn't angry anymore. I was surgical. No, please, by all means, don't laugh. It's not as funny now, is it? Making fun of the quiet guy only works when the quiet guy doesn't know where you park your car when you're cheating with someone else's wife. Someone gasped. Ezra's smug confidence vanished like smoke. You're making stuff up, he said, but his voice cracked on the last word. I smiled again. Sure. And the dashcam footage I handed to my lawyer is fiction too, right? Fantasy genre? I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to fight. I just needed to open the lid. And the smell of something rotten took care of the rest. Rowena didn't say anything. Not one word. Not even a denial. Just stood there with mascara starting to smudge, lips parted like a caught actress mid-rehearsal. Anyway, I said, placing my untouched drink on the counter. Thanks for the invitation. It's been illuminating. I looked at Ezra. Next time you want to mock someone, make sure they're not holding the matches over your whole illusion. And then I walked out. No shouting. No explosions. Just silence. And the heavy sound of every person in that room realizing the punchline had flipped. But that was just the start. What followed was way worse. And it didn't happen at a party. It happened at home. Because once a mask slips, the face underneath tends to rot fast. You'd think after a public humiliation like that, there'd be shouting. A meltdown. Tears. Some kind of apology, even if fake. But when Rowena got home that night, 3 hours after me, she didn't say anything. Not how could you? Not what the hell, Eldon. Not even I'm sorry. No. She walked in like it was any other night, put her bag down, kicked off her heels, and asked if I'd eaten. I stood in the kitchen, still wearing the same shirt I'd worn to the party, the one she never complimented me on, even though I spent 20 minutes steaming it. She poured herself water like she hadn't just stood beside another man while he tried to grind my dignity into paste in front of a dozen strangers. She didn't ask how I knew. She didn't deny the sweater. She didn't flinch when I mentioned the dashcam. That was the worst part. There was no fear. Just strategy. So I asked, "How long?" My voice cracked on the words. I hated that. Hated how pathetic I sounded. She took a sip of water, then leaned against the fridge. "Don't do this," she said. Calm. Tired. As if I were the one inconveniencing her by bleeding all over the linoleum. "Do what?" I asked. Ask questions about my own marriage? Her jaw clenched, but she didn't look at me. "Ezra was a mistake," she finally said. "It's over." Like that was supposed to fix everything. Like a fire being out meant the house wasn't still burned to the ground. I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded. Because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. Nod. Swallow. Pretend. Then she added, "But you didn't have to humiliate me in front of everyone." I laughed. I didn't mean to. It just exploded out. A sharp, bitter sound that made her blink. "Humiliate you? You've been sleeping with someone who's been calling me Wall Eldon for weeks, and you're the one who feels humiliated?" She didn't respond. Just crossed her arms, like she was waiting for this moment to pass. Like she had better things to do than deal with my breakdown. And maybe she did. Maybe Ezra was just the appetizer. Maybe the real betrayal was still sitting somewhere in her phone, waiting for me to find it. That night, she slept in the guest room. Her choice, not mine. And I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how long I'd been nothing more than a background character in her story. The thing is, I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was hollow. Like everything I'd built with her had quietly fallen apart, while I was too busy holding the door open for her to notice. But that emptiness was about to shift. Because the next morning, when I checked her phone while she was in the shower, I discovered Ezra was just the surface. There were other names, other messages, other nights. And one of them was someone I knew. Her phone wasn't even locked. That was the part that crushed me the most. Either she was that careless or that confident. While the shower ran in the next room, I sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her texts. I was shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the screen. But I couldn't stop, couldn't breathe, because there it was, Ezra's name, yes, but buried beneath that was the one that made my stomach fall through the floor, Darren. Not Ezra. Darren. Darren, as in, the best man at our wedding. Darren, who gave a toast about how I was the most loyal friend he'd ever known. Darren, who once called Rowena his sister from another mister, and used to sleep on our couch when his life fell apart after his divorce. That Darren. There were messages. So many. I don't know how I missed them before. Probably because they weren't dirty. Not the obvious kind. No pictures. No moaning emojis. Just little things. Quietly damning. Can't stop thinking about last weekend. Still hear your laugh in my head. Tell Eldon we should all hang out again soon. Pretend nothing happened. Pretend nothing happened? I didn't even know what weekend he was talking about. What weekend wasn't I home? When did she see him? My hands were ice. My vision blurred. I heard the water shut off in the bathroom, and I almost dropped the phone, scrambling to put it back exactly how I found it. Like I hadn't just excavated my own burial site. She came out wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, humming like nothing was wrong. Like she didn't just burn everything we had and leave the ashes neatly folded in her inbox. I want to make coffee. That's what I do when I'm panicking, perform normal rituals. It makes me feel like I'm still in control. The kettle hissed. My hands were trembling so hard I spilled the grounds. She didn't notice. She was busy texting. Maybe him. Maybe both of them. I stared at her across the kitchen island, realizing I didn't recognize her anymore. This wasn't the woman who danced barefoot with me in the rain 3 summers ago. This wasn't the girl who cried watching documentaries about whales. This wasn't even the version of her who laughed at my dumb jokes out of pity. This was someone else. Someone calculating. Layered. Dangerous in a quiet, smiling way. I should have said something. I should have screamed. I should have thrown every mug we owned at the wall. But instead I handed her coffee and asked how she slept. She said, "Fine. You?" And I said, "Fine." Just like that. Like I wasn't standing on the edge of a cliff with no railing, holding all the proof that our entire marriage was built on land that never stopped sinking. But I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. No. Not when I knew Darren had something to lose too. Not when I remembered something very specific about his workplace, his ex-wife, and a restraining order he swore was just a misunderstanding. Because if Rowena wanted to play chess, I was done being the pawn. And if Darren thought I'd stay quiet this time, he was about to learn just how loud I could be, without ever raising my voice. I didn't yell. I didn't even cry. That's not how it happened. Instead, I started waking up an hour earlier. That's all. That's how you get your life back. Not in a dramatic storm of shattered plates and slammed doors, but quietly, precisely, with surgical intent. Every morning before sunrise, while Rowena was still curled up on the far side of the bed pretending we were fine, I slipped into my study and started mapping out everything. I didn't need confrontation. I needed clarity. I started with Darren. I dug. It turns out he still had an open HR case from 2 years ago, a female subordinate. Nothing ever proven, but the kind of rumor that sticks. His company's ethics policy? Strict. Very strict. I also knew he recently reapplied for a managerial position after a 2-year freeze. His reputation mattered now. His spotless image mattered. And I had screenshots. But I didn't send anything. Not yet. I wasn't ready to torch the field. I wanted to control the weather first. With Rowena, it was trickier. She wasn't just a liar. She was good at it. Smooth. She changed passwords the day after I checked her phone, like she sensed something in the air. But I had already synced her cloud to a dummy laptop weeks ago, back when she started sleeping facing the wall. So even when she deleted messages, they weren't really gone. She was seeing Darren during her late spin classes. She'd Uber to his condo, stay for 2 hours, then Uber back. Sometimes she'd grab smoothies on the way home to sell the alibi. One time, she even came in still wearing her gym gloves. Like I couldn't smell the difference between sweat and cologne. I kept acting normal. I started bringing her flowers randomly. I kissed her forehead more. Told her I appreciated her. She called me sweet. Said I was improving. Imagine that, improving. Like I was some pet project. All while she was meeting up with a man who once cried drunk on my couch, telling me he'd never get over his ex. Here's what she didn't know. I was recording everything. Phone calls, screenshots, airdrop data. I even found an old external mic I'd used for podcasting during lockdown. Planted it in the car. One night, while driving herself to what she claimed was just drinks with coworkers, she called Darren and left her phone on speaker. She said, "He's getting suspicious." Darren said, "Then just fake it harder. You've always been good at that." That was the moment I changed. Not just how I saw her, but how I saw myself. I realized I'd spent the last 2 years apologizing for not being who she wanted, without ever stopping to ask what I deserved. I wasn't going to beg anymore. I wasn't going to play the injured husband. If she thought she was dating a doormat, fine. But this doormat was about to pull the floor out from under both of them. It was a Thursday when I decided to stop pretending entirely. Not to her. No, that would have been too easy. I mean to myself. I finally stopped rationalizing. Stopped explaining away the coldness, the half-answers, the way she kept her phone face down like it was a loaded weapon. I stopped telling myself, she's just going through something. No, she wasn't going through anything. She was going around me. Repeatedly. Methodically. And now it was time for her to see what it felt like when someone smiled to your face while plotting behind your back. I didn't need to invent lies. The truth was sharper. So I booked a weekend trip. Alone. Told her it was for mental clarity. And she said that sounded healthy. She even offered to help me pack, like she was relieved. I watched her face carefully. She didn't ask where I was going. Not once. Because she already had plans. And I had hers too. Friday night. She was supposed to meet Carla from the gym for kombucha and spiritual journaling. What actually happened was Darren picked her up in a car I'd already tagged with a magnetic GPS tracker I got off Craigslist for $20. They drove to a boutique hotel on the edge of town, not even trying to hide. I watched the pin move in real time from my phone, sipping black coffee in a cabin 4 hours away, already knowing what would happen next. I wasn't stalking. I wasn't spiraling. I was archiving. Every location. Every timestamp. Every receipt. She called me later that night, around 10:48 p.m. and said, "Miss you already. Hope you're relaxing." I told her I was sitting by the fire. That part was true. I just didn't say I was also listening to her hotel room through the recorder I'd planted in Darren's keychain a week earlier. You'd be surprised how easy it is to attach something when someone's drunk and talking about their Bluetooth speakers. What I heard wasn't explicit. I'd never record something like that. I wouldn't be able to handle it. But what I heard was enough. Her voice, saying, I think he's finally giving up. Darren laughing. Her saying, honestly, it's a relief. A relief. That's what I was to her now. A burden she'd finally untangled herself from. Not a person, not a partner. A responsibility. Something to shed like a winter coat in spring. So I stayed quiet. Let the rest of the weekend play out. And when I came home Sunday evening, she hugged me like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just spent the last 48 hours rebuilding a new life behind my back. Like the words a relief hadn't just buried themselves under my skin like splinters. She asked, feel any better? I said, clearer than ever. And that's when I realized something. She still thought she was in control. She had no idea what I'd collected. No clue what I was planning. No suspicion that I had every date, every lie, every recording sorted into labeled folders with backups sent to a lawyer friend out of town. She thought I was fragile. She had no idea I was already writing the ending. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't scream. It doesn't break doors or throw glasses. It just waits. Quiet. Patient. Like a wire stretched across a hallway at ankle height. You don't even know it's there until you're flat on your face. And that's exactly how I wanted her to experience the ending. The opportunity came faster than expected. Darren was turning 40. Rowena told me, offhandedly, that he was having something small, just a few friends, nothing formal, definitely not a big thing. She didn't even bother to lie convincingly. Said she was just stopping by after work. Alone. Said I'd be bored anyway. And I agreed. Told her I'd order sushi and start a new audiobook. She smiled like a woman with no idea that the floor under her was already cracking. But I didn't stay home. I waited until she left. Then I changed. Nothing flashy, just clean jeans, fitted black button-up, decent shoes. I looked better than usual, which honestly wasn't hard. I drove across town, parked a block away, and walked into the party she swore wasn't a party. It was very much a party. Lights. Music. At least 30 people. And Rowena? She was already there, standing next to Darren, hand on his chest, laughing at something he whispered. She hadn't seen me yet, and I didn't announce myself. I didn't have to, because I wasn't alone. I'd invited someone too, Darren's ex-wife. The one he used to trash whenever we had beers. The one who'd always suspected he'd been cheating back when they were still married but never had proof. I sent her everything the night before. She showed up polished, silent, and nuclear. She made her way across the room like a ghost dressed in court-ready lipstick. Rowena didn't even have time to fake a smile before Darren's ex stepped up, held up her phone, and said, "So this is what you left me for?" This. He looks like he files his emotions alphabetically. The music didn't cut out, but the room did. All eyes turned. Darren froze. Rowena's hand slipped off his chest. I was standing near the entrance, just quietly observing, sipping from a cup someone had left unattended. No need to say a word. No need to move. The damage was done before I even stepped into the light. Someone whispered, "Is that her husband?" Someone else muttered, "Isn't that Darren's ex?" And in the chaos of eyes and silence and half-sipped drinks, Rowena finally saw me. Her face changed instantly, not into guilt, not even shame, just recognition. The slow, dawning horror of someone who's realizing the person they thought was background noise just pulled the fire alarm. I didn't wave. I didn't gloat. I just nodded once and walked out. She followed me into the street maybe 2 minutes later, calling my name. I didn't turn, just kept walking. She caught up eventually, breathless, grabbing my sleeve. What the hell was that? I stopped, looked at her. That, I said, was you finally being seen for exactly what you are. No edits. No filters. No version control. She didn't speak. What could she say? Sorry. For which part? I left her standing on the sidewalk in the middle of a celebration that had turned into a courtroom. And the best part? I hadn't raised my voice once. But I wasn't done. There was still one more thing she didn't know. One final thread to pull. She didn't come home that night. I guess I expected that. I think she stayed at Darren's, or maybe with a friend. Not that it mattered anymore. The silence in our house wasn't empty anymore. It felt earned. Like air finally returned to a room that had been suffocating under years of invisible gas. The next morning, I made pancakes. Just for me. For the first time in months, I sat at the table and didn't stare at a phone waiting for a reply. Didn't wonder what mood I'd be walking into. I didn't feel victorious. This wasn't a win. It was more like waking up after a long illness and realizing how weak you'd gotten just trying to survive. She came back that afternoon. Her face looked tired in a way makeup couldn't fix. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just stood in the doorway, staring at me like I was a stranger in a place she used to own. "You planned all of it," she said. I nodded. She looked down. "You really recorded everything?" I didn't answer. She knew. That was enough. "I don't even know why I did it," she said. But her voice cracked like she'd rehearsed that line in her head, and it still landed wrong. "I think I just wanted to feel something different." I said nothing. "I guess I thought you'd never really leave," she added, almost like a question. But I already had. The version of me who tolerated silence and gaslighting and secret hotel meetups. He was gone. What stood in front of her was someone rebuilding, not clinging. I handed her an envelope. It wasn't dramatic. No thick legal packet or grand speech. Just a few printed screenshots, a written statement, and a drafted separation agreement. She flipped through the pages, her hands shaking a little. "You already talked to a lawyer?" "I did," I said. "Calm. Steady. And I'm not here to fight you. I just want out. Clean, simple, quiet." That word, quiet, landed hard. Because it was the one thing she never let me have. To her credit, she didn't argue. Maybe she knew I was already out the door before she even chased me down that night on the sidewalk. Maybe she finally understood that I'd stopped being her background character the moment I took control of the story. It took 3 months to finalize everything. I moved into a small condo near the lake. Nothing fancy. Just sunlight, a bookshelf, and silence that doesn't hum with lies. I started swimming again. I reconnected with my sister, who always said something about Rowena felt off, but never pushed it. I even got a call from Darren's ex, thanking me for the truth, said it helped her finally get full custody of their kid. That part meant something. And one day, I walked into a bookstore downtown, picked up a poetry collection, and found myself smiling for no reason. A woman beside me said, "That one's my favorite." She had ink on her hands and a chipped tooth and eyes that didn't dart around looking for someone better. We talked for 2 hours. I didn't tell her about Rowena. Not yet. But I will. Someday. Because the truth isn't something I'm afraid of anymore. It's something I live in now.